Hello and welcome to this episode of South West Londoner News.
In today's programme, Tooting by-election candidate Ankit Love gives us a lowdown of his policies. A residential area in Kew has been found to have twice the legal pollution limit. A Merton Disability charity hosted a panel debate on Brexit this morning. It's all blooming marvellous over at the Chelsea Flower Show, and crisis-hit Wetherspoons have announced they're calling last orders for 3 pubs in South West London.
Sadiq Khan has stepped up as London Mayor, leaving behind an empty seat in his Tooting constituency. Despite a poor showing in the mayoral race, candidate Ankit Love has thrown his hat into the ring for the by-elections set to be held on the 16th of June. Our reporter Lucy Pasha-Robinson caught up with one of London's more alternative candidates.
Ankit Love, musician, filmmaker, Maharaja, and most recently London's mayoral candidate. But his disappointing defeat didn't dent his confidence. He's now recently announced that he's running for the Tooting by-election with the One Love party. We caught up with him at his East London apartment to chat policies, music videos, and how he's planning on spreading the love in Tooting.
We're a techno-progressive party. That means we want to bring technology to the forefront to create social change for people. How can we improve people's lives as fast as possible? That's what the One Love Party stands for. At the moment, I don't have a lot of downtime, as you can imagine, because it's been back-to-back. We're doing the impossible, really. We're setting up a new political party with nothing, you know. And it's the fact that I don't have a lot of people that I hang out with apart from James, who lives here, the photographer, and the owner of this studio. So it's not right now something that exists as much. Hopefully, after I win a battle or two or make progression, I can find some friends. Tooting, because it's a way to get my voice heard. It's the only by-election that's on right now. I would fight election anywhere at this point, you know. From all perspectives of whether it's security against terrorist attacks that people in Tooting face, well, I've grown up with that since I was born. 9/11 was 24/7 for me. Whether it's the housing crisis, I am technically homeless, you know. I live in very rough accommodation at the moment. Whether it's employment, well, technically after June the 16th, if I don't get that Member of Parliament salary and all the great, expenses you get from that, I'm going to be having to look for a job really quick because I'm not going to be getting a lot more loans for a lot longer because I'm already defaulting on my credit card payments at this point. So I'm getting those threatening letters from debt collectors too. So if there's anybody who understands the system from the top to the bottom, I believe, you know, it's me. Why Tooting? Honestly, because it really gives us a chance to start a revolution nationally in this country now. It's the only window of hope that is open at this given point. And I will fight anywhere. And so I'm being honest with the people of Tooting that I'm fighting for a cause that I believe is really great, that represents all of them. But I would have done it anywhere, but I'm glad it's in Tooting. Dr. Khan, or Khan II as I like to say, she will always be a foot soldier for Labour for Tooting. And that may be in one way you're with a large party, that's one thing. But on the second choice, I am the most high-profile candidate coming into the Tooting election, where I might have been last in the mayoral election. That gives me the highest profile on that ballot. The core of my revolution is our energy crisis, is the air pollution pandemic that is killing 200,000 people. That is a need for revolution. I believe this is a revolution for me, and I believe that is what I'm fighting for. I might be a losing revolutionary, but I'm honestly a revolutionary.
He's a self-described impoverished Maharaja who claims to have more first-hand experience of London's housing crisis and air pollution issues than any other leading candidate. Whether he's capable of sparking a revolution in Tooting remains to be seen. We'll find out if Ankit is Tooting's One Love on June 16th.
Concerns are growing in Kew and the surrounding areas as air pollution levels have risen to twice the legal limit. And reports suggest this is causing respiratory problems for children and adults in the area. Callum Burrow spoke to the co-chairman of the Kew Residents Association.
Research has shown that some parts of Richmond have air pollution levels up to twice that of the UK legal limit, with concern growing about the impact that high nitrogen dioxide levels could have on the health of residents.
We spoke to the Kew Residents Association co-chairman, Roger Mason, a former doctor and professor in biomedical sciences at Imperial College London, to find out more.
There's good research to show now that if a child grows up beside a polluted main road, then by the time it reaches the age of 10, its lung development, its lung capacity is 10% less than it would be in a child that grew up beside a clean environment. And there was a report which was published by the Royal College of Physicians earlier this year, which showed that such children are much more likely, 4 times more likely, to continue to have problems with their lungs in adult life. So it's not a problem that goes away with maturity, it stays with you.
He also gave advice on how individuals could take action on air pollution.
The best thing you can do is to use your car, particularly if it's a diesel-powered car, as little as possible. It's much safer to walk along the street, for instance, than it is to drive along the street, because the air intake on cars actually concentrates the pollution inside the car. So it's been shown that the pollution levels in the car are 2.5 times higher than they are on the pavement that you're going past on the road.
We asked Kew residents what they thought about air pollution in Richmond being well above the legal limit of 40 micrograms per cubic metre of air.
Roads like this never stop 24/7, so you're constantly kind of being subjected to this pollution from multiple sources. So I don't see any kind of way of getting around this, because Heathrow is always going to be there. They're always going to be developing more housing, and the road situation is just going to get worse.
I'm absolutely horrified, particularly as I live down the road here in Isleworth, which is even further in towards the airport, where a lot of the pollution I feel will come from.
Going here to have a look at this road here, it's always so busy, and it's a real shame, because me and my daughter have just come from Kew Gardens, which is just stunning, wonderful. This is how, pure nature and everything else, no pollution whatsoever, and then you come here and you're really hit by it. So yeah, it's a real shame.
With research showing that air pollution from traffic exhausts can increase the risk of heart disease, lung cancer, diabetes and strokes, we asked what people believe local authorities and recently elected Mayor Sadiq Khan could do to address the situation.
There's really little that they can do, because even if they bring out charges to limit traffic, for instance, that people will just pay it, because it's quite an affluent area. They'll just accept these charges and continue driving to work.
It's quite worrying. I'd like them to try and do something. Let us know what the possibilities are.
Well, I'd like to see the Mayor of London and the GLA have a real effect on air pollution, because it's really, it's making a big impact on us. So maybe more bikes around here. It's so beautiful that, I don't know how we can quite do it, but there must be some solution. There seems to be solutions for everything, so yeah, I'm sure there is.
The causes of air pollution are clear, but what is less clear is how best to deal with it. The Kew Residents Association has put forward a number of proposals to deal with this. However, residents are concerned and unsure about the best way to come to a solution. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan has a battle on his hands to deal with the manifesto pledges on clean air in the capital.
The EU referendum is just under a month away and the debate is heating up. With the discussion focusing on the consequences to the economy and immigration, campaigners for the rights of the disabled claim they are being overlooked. Our reporter Stuart Ballard joined the Merton Centre for Independent Living for their Brexit panel discussion this morning.
On June the 23rd, the British public will vote in one of the biggest referendums of their generation on whether to leave the EU or remain. A lot has been discussed about the economic issues, but people with disabilities have largely been ignored. 12 million people in the UK have some form of disability, so Brexit could have a profound effect on their future welfare. We're here at a panel discussion set up by Merton Centre for Independent Living at Tooting and Richmond Football Club to find out the views of those who yet haven't had a voice.
I think many disabled people aren't sure about how the EU question relates to them, actually, and I think there's lots of misconceptions. So many disabled people are worried about, for example, the European Convention on Human Rights, which is not actually affected by whether we're in or out of the EU. The government may decide to come out of that regardless of whether we're in the EU or not.
If we leave, nobody really knows what's going to happen, and there are risks, and I think there are very significant risks for disabled people and for disability rights about a Brexit. So I'm very passionately for Remain and for making our contribution to Europe even stronger than it's been in the past, and making sure that we take advantage of all the opportunities that EU membership gives us.
Much of the discussion centred on how much EU law protected people with disabilities, and there were some contradictory views from the panel.
So if we leave, it would be much easier for the government of the UK to pull back to repeal some of the rights we have at the moment, which they can't at the moment because they're protected by EU law. If we leave, we lose that protection. So the UK government, whichever one it is, if they decide that disability rights are bad for business, could get rid of a lot of the protection we have at the moment. At the moment they can't because we're in the EU and EU law protects those rights.
The way to uphold disabled people's rights essentially is for disabled people ourselves to campaign, to fight from below. That's how we've secured all the rights that we have over the last few decades, rights that we're now seeing eroded by the Conservative government through their cuts. And where's the EU been when we've been fighting those? They haven't given us any protection. And I think it's dangerous for disabled people to be given the impression that institutions from on high, like the EU, are what is going to save us or rescue us from the cuts.
I think one of the key points for people to be absolutely clear on is that if we leave the EU, it doesn't mean we're somehow coming out into a nirvana where all of our rights are going to be respected, disabled people's rights and all the other social standards we've fought for. That's not the case at all. This government in the UK, irrespective of whether it's a Tory government or a Labour government, has always been one of the most regressive in Europe. So if you compare us to other member states, they are much more progressive than we are. So if we come out, there's absolutely no sense at all that somehow things are going to get better overnight.
The crowd seems split on the matter, and even those on the panel haven't quite made up their mind yet.
I think for myself, my heart wants to say in, because I feel European, I feel happier being part of something bigger. But my head has had the experience of 20 years of fighting the EU trade policy as it's got worse and worse and more anti-social, more and more anti-people's rights. So I suppose it depends. If I wake up on the 23rd of June directed by my heart, I'll vote in, but I think I'll probably be directed by my head and vote out.
The grounds of Chelsea Royal Hospital have once again been transformed into an oasis for the world's most famous flower show, inspiring gardeners across the capital. And green-fingered reporter Lucy Middleton has been tracking down the hype among the hydrangeas.
We've all heard of the ornate gardens and prestigious awards of the Chelsea Flower Show, but not many will have heard of the Chelsea Fringe, which kicks off for the 5th year this week. While the festival serves to celebrate community spirit, it also highlights the benefit that gardening can have on health and well-being. We spoke to the director of Lambeth GP Food Co-op, Ed Rosen, about the positive impact that gardening can have.
It gives me great pleasure to have brought the Lambeth GP Food Co-op into the Jenny Lee garden at King's College Hospital. Jenny Lee was married to Aneurin Bevan. Aneurin Bevan created, along with other people, the NHS in 1948. We've been here since spring of 2015. Each Wednesday morning, a group of patients from the local GP surgery, the corner surgery in Cold Harbour Lane, come along and grow food. We have 37,000 people in the borough out of a total population of 313,000 who have a long-term health condition. And we have a community across the borough who are involved in different activities interlinked around food, diet and nutrition. And I hope it sparks the imagination of other colleagues working in the NHS who might be interested in taking action around gardening within their own organisations.
Also participating in Chelsea Fringe are Urban Growth Learning Gardens, a Brixton-based not-for-profit organisation using their horticultural knowledge to empower volunteers. Founder Bruno Lacey told us why he believes the festival is a great platform to showcase the merits of gardening.
I've created this company, Urban Growth Learning Gardens, in order to support people who haven't thrived in other settings, maybe people who haven't got much educational success, people who are struggling to get into work, people suffering from long-term health problems, because there's an increasingly large amount of evidence out there that gardening is therapeutic. It's the second year that this site has been part of Chelsea Fringe. Last year there was a huge collection of amaryllis here which filled this whole polytunnel with red and white flowers when the site was first opening. Now that we've got Pop Farm, we've changed the angle and we're focusing on the community element. I was at Chelsea Flower Show just the other day, and obviously we can't compete, but we're working on a totally different scale of budget, and this is a real garden for real Londoners. It shows what you can do in small spaces.
I think that it brings people together. I mean, I've met a lot of people here that have taught me a lot of stuff that I didn't know about gardening and plants and herbs, And I think in that sense, yeah, it brings a lot of people together. I think everyone should know about gardening.
When you look at the people who are contributing to the Chelsea Fringe, not only is it global, not only is it across Europe and across England, but the people that I know about in London are really amazing community projects that are creating accessible, cheap, really health-promoting projects, which give us reason to be optimistic.
And finally, this week, Wetherspoons announced the closure of several pubs following a huge 25% drop in profits. Putney, Fulham and Mitcham are all calling time at the bar. Joe Shepherd headed down to Putney to see what the locals thought of the news.
The demise of the public house is a well-worn tale in 21st century Britain. 29 close every week. Wetherspoons had seemed immune from this depressing trend, with its low-cost booze and garish carpets, a fixture of the high streets across the country.
That may be about to change, with the chain announcing that 45 of its pubs are to be shut down, including 8 in London. The railway in Putney is facing the chop.
A former hotel, the pub is a grand Victorian building prominently positioned in the town centre since 1889. Its walls depict the town's varied past, with framed tributes to figures such as William Pitt the Younger and Bobby Moore. A 25% fall in Wetherspoons' pre-tax profits has prompted drastic measures, with the railway being put on the market. We asked residents how closure may affect them and the local community.
Well, the closure of any pub's a bad thing. It's the heart of the community, and it's really sad when you see any pubs close, I think, and this one's on the high street. It's always busy when you walk past, but yeah, it's a real shame, generally the decline of all pubs, I think.
I don't think it'll affect it much because there's a lot of other pubs around, and there's one next to it which is actually cheaper than Wetherspoons, and it's not even a Wetherspoon. And there's Rocket down the road, which a lot of people go to.
I mean, the pub's quite a landmark around here. It's well known, it's one of the bigger pubs around, and it's one of the few that are affordable on a student budget, so actually I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of people that are upset.
I think it's going to be a real shame. I think basically because the high street at the moment used to have a wealth of pubs, but each one seems to be, because of the rental situation, has been closing. So we'll leave there will only be one pub, a genuine pub on the high street, which means that it's going to become more of a ghost town. It'll lose the vibrancy of everything else.
A number of complex factors are behind the downturn in profits for high street pubs, from changing tastes to spiralling rents.
I think cocktail places are becoming the new thing, so the financial cost of keeping them open is probably a lot higher now.
I would suggest that the breweries do tend to tie the landlords into selling their own products with very small profit margins, and if the landlords can't make money, then the pubs aren't viable.
And particularly in the UK, property or land is basically becoming more and more expensive, so that they're putting the rates up and up and up, and whoever owns the buildings can make more money out of redevelopment into housing or anything else, which I think again is a shame, because you need to have some kind of community focal point.
So it seems the pub will be sorely missed, with locals feeling the loss of a vital source of community spirit.
I've been Rory O'Connor.
And I've been Lauren Windle.
And from all of us here at the South West Londoner team, good night.